Have you noticed how many Skool communities, especially new ones, seem to die within the first 30 days? I've heard so many times that people say, I've got 50 to 100 members, but they all come inside and they basically do nothing. They don't engage, they're not active, they don't get involved, and they're just dead communities. They seem like ghost towns. So in this video, I want to break down why communities seem to fail, especially early on in the beginning. And I think that most Skool communities fail because they have a bad setup. So it's not necessarily that they have bad content. It's not necessarily that the idea is bad, but I think most fail because they have a bad setup and they don't quite understand what you need to be doing early on, what you need to be doing in the first month and then second month and in the first 90 days. So there is a 90-day death spiral when it comes to communities, both free and paid. Typically, your churn rate in the first month is going to be the highest it is, no matter what you really do. People are either in free communities going to be active and do something or leave, or they go dead. And because it's free, there's no urgency for them to go to the effort to find out how to leave that particular group. So them going dead is basically them, in many cases, churning. But typically in the first month, you have a high degree of churn. And then after that, you also have a high level in the second month, and even in the third month is still the highest level. But if you can get people involved and active over time, then typically that churn rate drops down to about 2%. It starts to go right down. So what we need to do is we need to fix month one. We need to make sure that we're hitting everything in the right way to get them active and involved in month one. And it's worth noting that before we jump into what you need to do for that, and I'm going to get into the 3 main points that we're going to be able to help to retain people and keep them active, is that sometimes it's not really your fault. Sometimes it's not your fault that people aren't as active in your particular community. And one of the first reasons of that is that you are outcome based. So you're more of a course, you're more of a funnel with your community. People are coming in for a purpose, they're grabbing something, they're learning something, and then maybe they're moving on. Maybe they're getting the transformation that they wanted. In which case, naturally, over time, especially, you're going to start to see less activity from those people once they get what they want. Whereas topic-based and passion-based communities are going to be ongoing. People are going to keep coming back, they're going to keep jumping in and out, and they're going to be active on an ongoing basis. So it's easy with those types of communities to keep people active. You also may have cold traffic. Now, obviously, this is slightly your fault, potentially, but in many cases, if it's cold traffic, you need to understand that you have to do more engaging, more nurturing, and do more touch points inside the community because you didn't do it outside. So if you have warm traffic flooding into your system, it's obviously going to be more active people. They're going to know you, they're going to like you, they're going to trust you, and they're probably going to be more invested in the community itself and the reason that they're joining. And then the third reason, which I'm seeing myself now, and I think I see in many other communities, is that communities naturally start to age out over time. What I mean by this is that some people go dormant on, say, the Skool platform. They originally signed up. Maybe they came through your link and they came in just for your community, and then they left because of that. And that means they're just not even active on the Skool platform anymore. I've been through a lot of my traffic recently, and I need to start going through and cleaning things out a bit because I've noticed that there's a lot of people that haven't been active on the Skool platform in over a year. So naturally, groups, the longer you have them, the dip in engagement will naturally start to go down. And that's something that we have to be aware of over time. As many of us in the beginning, we have that sort of 90-day, everything's going very well. Maybe you're doing really well for engagement, but then that's when it starts to dip. And often that's just aging out. But mostly we have to be aware that it's things that we are doing, things that we are potentially doing and in control of. So the first thing that we want to be doing in month one, knowing that month one is where the highest churn is going to be, is that we only have this 1 month to get the right behaviors in. And especially if you're wanting to turn someone into a paying client or paying member, month one is where it all happens, even in a free community. So it's important in paid communities, but it's even more important in free communities in terms of trying to get people to move on to the next stage. So you only really have that window. And yes, over time, I've converted people a year later and so on. Some people, just like an email list, will convert later on, but most people are going to be converting in that month one period. That's going to be the most active time to help them, to connect with them, and also to potentially bridge them into paying clients. So what we need to do is we need to help them form a new habit. That be a habit of actually coming to the community, a reason to keep showing up, not just from the moment that they signed up. And also we want to get them a quick win. If people get a win, then they're automatically invested and they understand what it is that they should be doing. They suddenly want to take the next steps. They want to go a little bit deeper. But it's really about a habit and a win in the beginning. And if you get this right, you get great engagement. People stay. Otherwise, if they don't really get invested and they don't have a reason to come back later on, they forget about you and they just leave and they never come back. So the only goal really from day one is not education. And this is something that many of us as coaches and educators and educational creators are potentially learning the hard way, especially with the speed at which information is changing and how we deliver that, the speed with which that's actually happening. It's all about momentum. So momentum and that one win. We want to check a box of some kind. We want to get that feeling that says this was worth it. I'm glad I joined. That's great. A little dopamine hit. That's what they actually want. So we have to think about how can we get them that mini win and that momentum from day one. It's not going to necessarily be in your course. Maybe you have a mini course of some kind, but there's some realization of something before. Perhaps you want to give them a template or something that they can immediately use within their business. And that's going to give them an immediate win, immediate result. And they're going to think, great, I'm so glad I signed up. This is fantastic. Now I'm willing to stay for additional things. So we have to make sure that we're not just overwhelming them. We're not just going, hey, welcome to the community here. Here's a whole bunch of stuff. And there's more in the classroom here. And there's a whole bunch over here. And I'm going to send you 20 messages and so on. We just overwhelm people. And that is the next thing, the overwhelm trap. And this is the curse of the education industry, because we think more content is actually a good thing. And maybe in 2016, more content was a good thing. And in fact, when I first started making online courses and so on, it was actually seen as great. People wanted more. I would say, I'm giving you 10 hours of this and 20 hours of this and these old courses to go with this new course. And that was all seen as value. But now, especially within this community model, it equals more churn. So this is a particularly bad thing if you've got a paid community. You're actually giving people too much. But understanding the conversions in terms of people consuming that on a free level and actually watching your course is incredibly low. Now, I saw some information. Hopefully it's accurate. But if you know AI Jack is basically a guy, he has a great community, paid. It's about AI content, and apparently his churn was around 30%. So he charges a monthly amount for his community, and he's done very well. He's won the Skool games and so on. And he basically said that he managed to reduce churn from 30% down to 5% by simply removing a huge amount of content from his classroom and actually downsizing what he was offering people. And I've heard this time and time again. So yes, maybe it's anecdotal in terms of AI Jack, but we've heard a lot more people saying this. I've noticed it myself as well. So I think it's safe to say that the data is in that overwhelming people is not necessarily a good thing. We actually want to give people less, and that's on the free side and also on the paid side, and just be really single focused and trying to get them the result in the fastest time possible. So we also have to realize that free course completion rates are around about 10%, often even less. They're sort of around the sort of 5% to 15%, depending on where you stand. So if people aren't going to be consuming that, then you don't really want to be giving them huge amounts. All it's going to do is slow them down, make sure that they don't take action, make sure that they don't get the results that they want. And it definitely will make sure that they don't move on to the next stage of becoming a paying client. Because if I've got too many free things to go through, there's no chance I'm going to be upgrading to the paid one to buy even more. So yes, although people say the opposite, people do want more free. They always say they want more free because they still, deep in their heart, see it as valuable. Yes, please give me more, more, more. But it's basically just a nice idea. They like the idea of having it. And I'm still speaking to people now that really like some of my older courses and would like to keep going back through that, but they still haven't actually gone through it. And it's only when it's removed and then 6 months later they say, oh, can I get access to that? it just shows how long it took them to even consider consuming it. So tomorrow never comes, and it becomes this tomorrow mentality. So we have to make sure that we're not overwhelming people, we're not putting friction in front of them, and we're helping them move forward as quickly as possible in those first 30 days. Now, the rule of 3 that I would follow when it comes to creating your classroom and your training area inside the Skool platform or your community platform is generally to only have 3 things max in the classroom, unless you're breaking it down and gamifying it. I do see that working quite well for people, where it's unlocking at different levels within a free community. But for the most part, I generally wouldn't have more than 3 things going on here. Otherwise, you just end up overwhelming people. And I used to think it looked great and it was fantastic. But the amount of people that arrived there and they look at it and they actually would send me a message and go, oh, it's a bit scary. Or I would hear on the calls, it was definitely a bit unnerving and a bit overwhelming. So depending on who your people are, beginners definitely get overwhelmed by having too much. So I think the rule of 3, having 3 things within your classroom, no more, and have your most valuable thing that you're giving away for free unlocked at level 2. So even if you're not gamifying the unlocking of many things, what I would do to get people to actually work a little bit, because people do need to get involved. They will just lurk. I've realized this. I used to do quizzes and many other things to get people active, and this worked very well, but then it was too much and it was overwhelming people. So what I've come to realize is that if people can get to level 2 or level 3, they are invested. So I definitely think, and this is something I'm going to go back to, having something that unlocks at level 2 that is valuable to them, the most valuable thing, the reason they signed up for your community. And it wouldn't have just been to be in your community. It would have been for something that you potentially were giving away. I would look to unlock that, or the key part of it, at level 2, because at least then they have to do a few comments, they have to like a few things, and they take a few mini actions. And it's the kind of faking it until you make it that forms that new habit that we were speaking about a moment ago. And when you get that new habit, and then if you get a mini dopamine win from that thing that you unlock at level 2, let's say, then you've had that win, you've had that success, you've had that dopamine, you had that thing that makes you want more. So mini wins and fast in a bite-sized way. I also think we should be sort of having posts and things that are connected, or mini actions and questions and engagement posts that are linked perhaps to your mini course and the things that they do, so that you can have mini bite-sized actions that people take in the beginning. Because no one's going to create a post apart from potentially a spammer or someone that's maybe a competitor and very confident from the moment they're in there. They have to take bite-sized actions, and that might be an emoji, a gift, a liking it, a comment, and working up towards a post later on. And these little bite-sized wins all count for people. So try and break things down in that sense. And then you also have to understand that a lot of people are just curious, and they're just coming in to have a look. And those people that are curious and are just coming in to have a look, should we be removing these people? Maybe they were never the right people to begin with. And we want to, in a free community especially, be letting a lot of these, as we like to call them, lurkers inside. Some lurkers are true customers. They're the ones that will maybe be the most decisive in those 30 days and just buy something straight away and upgrade right away. But they're just not interested in interacting too much in the community. That's fine. But then you get a lot of the curious people. And these could be competitors. They could be people that just want to have a look. Maybe they were interested in trying something out, but they maybe need to be removed. And as I was saying, I've been messaging and going through and updating a lot of things in my free community, which I will link to in the video description if you would like more help growing your community business, and also the sort of foundational courses and things that you need to know, as well as understanding the right model for your community business and validating it. And I will again link to our free community in the video description. But going through that has been eye-opening, because I've realized that a lot of people are just not in there, or they came in and they've moved on since, or they've just taken zero action, or they've never responded to me, or they've never done anything. I think, although Skool is always saying that you shouldn't, we should be removing these people. And I'm going to be doing a massive cull very soon, because I definitely think that it probably, although they say it doesn't, will impact your discoverability, because there'll be lower activity rates inside. There'll be a lot more dead members. And just like an email list, you would clean it up, you would keep it healthy to make sure deliverability is is good. Because if other people see everybody else doing nothing, it's that social conditioning where if they're not saying anything, then I'm not going to say anything. So in my opinion, other than sort of social proof, which is important in the beginning, having a smaller, more active community of potential buyers is far more important than having a large vanity metric of a large community. So the 3 things that you can work on to keep them active inside your community, I would say the first one is having a good onboarding system. And this is something we do inside our incubator, where we will help you set everything up and have a proper onboarding flow and a way to manage people all the way from free towards paid. But we really want to make sure, even if you're just getting started with this, that you're thinking about what the experience is in the first 24 hours. What is their mindset? What is the momentum? What happens at the different stages? How can you avoid confusion and make sure that they feel connected and involved? And this will be DMs. It will be where you redirect them. It will be welcome posts. It will be onboarding sections. It will be many different things and touch points that you do, perhaps some of it personal and some of it automated, to make sure that you get people to engage ASAP. The people that engage are typically going to be your most engaged members, the ones that are more likely to become customers. Now, very rarely has someone ever bought from me before they've engaged with me. So almost never does anybody just buy from Ghost. Ghost to buying just doesn't really happen. So what does happen is that people engage in some way, shape, or form. So if they don't, well, they were just curious and they were just dabbling and looking inside. So you really want to think about those first 24 hours. What are you going to do in the first 24 hours to try and drive that engagement, maybe get that mini win, or just at least get that first response from them? The next one is the deadline mechanism, or something I like to call a reality anchor, something that anchors them to the community, gets them coming back, gets them invested, and gets them connected. Now, there's a fine balance on this between the overwhelm and then not giving enough. And I've been testing this a lot. And I think for many of us, it depends on the traffic source that we have and the authority that we keep and how important it is to make your time valuable. But then at the same time, having a call once a week or maybe once every other week seems to be a really good way to drive connection within the community. There's a call recording where everybody can connect, and the recording is then shared in the community, which creates content. You can also have mini challenges, or even for your freebies, I think challenges to some degree, not too long, can be great to get people engaged and fired up. But then some type of task or something that they need to do, that will get them invested and coming back and anchored into the community itself. This could be a little bit of gamification as well, as we were saying before, something to reach potentially level 3, because that's when they're going to be most likely to stay in the community, most likely to become a buyer. But you want them to keep showing up. So we have to think of ways to do that while protecting. And as I said, the fine line is when you give too much, it doesn't work anymore, churn, overwhelm, dead. If you don't give enough, not enough connection, becomes a little bit dead, no reason to come back. So we need a reality anchor to get people coming back to the community later on. And then number 3, which is something I've absolutely 100% noticed, especially with things aging out, is that you need a new bloodline of traffic. You need new people coming in. Content is king. Everybody wins the Skool games because they have a great social media presence and a large audience. You don't necessarily need a large audience, but you do need new blood coming in on an almost daily basis. You ideally want new members coming in daily, and then you can start to nurture people, maybe get clients weekly, and then so on. We can start to scale from there. But we really have to have new blood coming in of the right targeted people, and ideally warm. So as long as there's new people coming in, a reason to stay and engage, and you're actively trying to get them to engage in the first 24 hours and maybe get them that mini win, well, this is where the magic happens. So understand that momentum is everything. The first moment they enter the community and they get involved is key. What happens in the days after is key. And your first 30 days for the majority of people that are ever going to work for you is going to be absolutely key. As always, if you would like more training on this, you can join our free community, which I will link to in the video description. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.